to Zoom In, Zoom Out, your global look at news from Taiwan. I'm your host, Chris Gorin. Nearly 1 in 4 adults in Taiwan uses the app TikTok, or its Chinese version Douyin, making it one of the fastest growing social media platforms in the country. But even as its popularity grows, it's become a lightning rod for controversy, often linked to concerns around Chinese influence. A recent Doublethink Lab report has weighed in on the issue. Doublethink Lab is a leading think tank in Taiwan, founded by DPP lawmaker Puma Shen. They investigate Chinese influence and disinformation. To help us unpack the report and what it all means for Taiwan, we're here with Doublethink Lab researcher Eric Xu. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
So I want to start by asking you, why did Doublethink choose to look at TikTok specifically? What makes this app different, especially for Taiwanese users?
I think there's various reasons that Doublethink Lab we choose TikTok as the target to study. I think one of the most significant reason is the short form type of video is actually being brought by TikTok, and it kind of permanently changed people's habits on information consuming. And the other thing is also about, there's quite a lot of concern and suspicious about TikTok's platform, no matter on its controlling of algorithm or its potential pro-China situation. I think for those people who supporting democracy and wanted to remain the democratic resilience of Taiwan, we always have quite a lot of concern about TikTok. For example, people saying like, 抖音一响，父母白养, saying like, if the children use TikTok, the parents' effort start to fade away. However, I think as a activist group or the kind of like think tank organization in Taiwan, we really need evidence-based study in order to support all this kind of concern. So that is all the reason that Doublethink Lab think it is a perfect time for us to study TikTok.
So what's actually the difference between TikTok, the international version of the app that most people know, and Douyin, the version that's available in China?
I think obviously their name is different. However, and also the way to apply account or to hold account on TikTok and Douyin is also quite different, because for TikTok you don't even need to have an account. You can just type TikTok on Google and then you can start to use TikTok. However, for Douyin you need to, probably a couple of years ago it's relatively easier. But however, these days you need to use VPN in order to download Douyin, and also you may need to provide specific certification or ID in order to get an account on Douyin. And also the content is quite different, because according to our research, TikTok is more diverse. It has different countries or different type of style of contents. However, for Douyin, it's more focusing on the PRC domestic life or some life sharing between the Taiwanese citizen and PRC citizens.
You mentioned at the beginning TikTok is unique in the way that it shows its users this short form video content. In your study, how did you find that that is affecting the way people use the internet and access information?
We actually found that TikTok active user, because we trying to define what means active user in our research. So for TikTok active user, they have significantly higher online addiction level compared with inactive user. And the other thing is we also use a technique called latent class analysis in order to identify the political attitude types in Taiwan. And then we use another statistic technique in order to see whether using TikTok, this behavior itself, does it change people's political attitude? And the results is really surprising, because it is changing people. It's making people become more anti-establishment, and also making people more doubting Taiwanese system, and also make them have more pro-PRC ideas and attitudes.
One of the interesting findings of the survey is that frequent users of TikTok blame different people for disinformation campaigns than non-frequent users. Mm-hmm. Specifically, frequent users tend to blame Taiwan's ruling DPP party for disinformation, whereas less frequent users tend to blame China. Mm-hmm. So how is that kind of playing out among the users of TikTok and among Taiwan's netizens?
First of all, because of this issue will directly influence people's trust to specific political organization. So if people think the ruling party or the ruling government is the main resource of disinformation or misinformation, or they are responsible for those online army, cyber army, I will absolutely decrease the people who already dislike ruling party or who already dislike DPP in order to accept more information or more other positive image about the government or about the party. So people will, at the very beginning, have a kind of like cognitive bias to look at all of the things.
So you feel that it's the content, though, that is causing these views to be reinforced, or are these sort of built into the audience to begin with? I noticed that more TPP voters tend to use TikTok just to begin with. So might this just be reflecting their sort of inherent bias rather than what they're seeing on TikTok?
I will say it also relates to information the change, the shift of the technique of information manipulation in the last few years. Because I think at the very beginning, they originally they wanted to create some disinformation or misinformation in order to convince people to trust something may not be true. However, the strategy slightly changed because now they picking up some existing topics or some existing ideas and meanwhile trying to emphasize to strengthen them. So I will say the use of TikTok actually is to improving or to strengthen people's existing bias and also to increase the conflicts and polarization in Taiwan, because the point is trying to erase the space of discussion and making people hate each other and eventually thinking the other side doesn't deserve the democratic rights, and then to distrust our system.
Were there any other significant findings you found that people who use TikTok more often have different views of the PRC or of Taiwanese domestic politics?
TikTok active user compared with inactive user, they are more buying the narrative, or they have highly agreement level to the ideas that even Taiwan being unified, the ordinary citizen's life won't have significant change. And the other thing is they also more buying the ideas that for ordinary people, PRC is more livable than Taiwan. And I also think compared with inactive the TikTok user, they also thinking that in order to remain peace cross-strait relation, it is okay to give up the current Taiwanese democratic system.
And how significant was the difference there in terms of people who think that Taiwanese democracy is working, or who feel that it's better than the communist system in China? Are we seeing large differences between TikTok users and non-TikTok users?
And the point is not trying to change people's identification of being a Taiwanese, because PRC or the PRC actors, they knows that Taiwan has been in a democracy status for more than 30 years. So it is really difficult to change people's identification. However, the point is to try their best to decrease people's willing to resist when facing the potential military conflicts.
I guess I'll just ask you straightforwardly, how much do you or does Doublethink feel that TikTok presents a threat to Taiwan's information ecosystem, or to its society?
I think I can only represent myself as the project manager to saying this, to answer this question based on our study. I will say, according to our 3 reports, TikTok has already significantly changed people's ideas on perception about PRC. And it is decreasing people's willing to resist and also reduce the sensitivity of people to identify what is PRC threats, because people start to think, oh, PRC is more livable. There's no significant difference between PRC life and life in Taiwan. So eventually people will start to think, oh, if the problem only happen between governments and politicians, then for ordinary citizens, why we need to fight for Taiwan if there's no difference? If one day that PRC conduct military invasion to Taiwan, our life will have no change. So why we resist? So I think this kind of idea has already start to influence Taiwan, and I think TikTok absolutely contribute a lot.
Do you think the danger is enough that Taiwan should consider banning the app completely?
I think as an activist, I will suggest our society. I think that is also one of the reasons that we wanted to do this project, because we want our partners or our society can have a chance to know more about TikTok or what exactly TikTok users' experience look like. Because as a democratic system, for most of our interviewees, they reply during the interview, they saying that they know that TikTok has some negative contents. However, they don't agree that they will be brainwashed by TikTok. And if banning TikTok without further discussion directly, they think it will make Taiwan have no difference with PRC. So I think as an activist, I will encourage government officials or other organizations more get involved in the study of TikTok and bring more social communication strategy with TikTok users, especially to younger generation.
On that topic, you did release a separate report specifically on younger people using TikTok. What are some of the specific concerns or the specific trends that you found among younger people using TikTok?
One thing that keep making me notice during the conduction of the project is I found that younger generation has a sense of powerless and insensitivity to quite lots of things. So the powerless reflect in various perspectives. For example, when we ask their ideas about potential unification or their ideas about PRC threats, because of the powerless, they think there's nothing they can do. And because there's nothing they can do, so they don't care. Or they don't think it will be helpful if they care. I think for also not only during the interview with our younger generation, when we talk with other teachers or educational organizations about the kids these days, they also found, compared with the previous generation, the insensitivity is really strong. It seems there's nothing can actually raise their interest. So I think when we put this situation back to the discussion of potential unification or potential military conflicts, we need to make our younger generation be able to care our system or to care Taiwanese democracy first, and then to more further encourage them to fight for our system.
Did the report also find that the sort of algorithmically driven short form video content was also increasing the addictiveness among young people to use their phone or feel like they were more stressed out if they didn't have internet access or any of that kind of thing?
That is one thing is actually really interesting, also kind of like contradictory things within the observation as well is they're saying that the reason that they use TikTok because it's easy, it's short, it won't cost you a lot of time. However, when we ask most of the younger generation, each time of they use TikTok is more than 1 hour. It is not because of it's short, it is easy. So people can use more short total amount of time to use them. It's just complete opposite because people more tend to use longer than they expected. And also according to what they say, TikTok is like, the algorithm is so clever because you don't need to do anything. It will directly feed you something you want to see. Something can make you happy. So it's like a content buffet. They just open an app, enjoy the content, and then look back, they already got online addiction.
Eric Xu, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us today.
Glad to be here. It's my pleasure.
This has been Zoom In, Zoom Out. I'm Chris Gorin. For more stories from TaiwanPlus, check us out on social media or TaiwanPlus.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.